Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week,
here's a little news flash.
Sarah, Gustav, and the Republican convention.
This is like something out of a novel.
The rescue of Colombian hostage Ingrid Betancourt. What really happened and why some journalists aren't happy about it. The blogger Egypt put in jail and the new rules aimed at people like him. And Al Jazeera goes to Colorado.
What exactly is the nature of your jihad?
I guess you'd call it a mild jihad for the truth.
Where some of the natives are restless.
Don't even talk to me, go away.
Welcome back. We begin with a question. Did John McCain win the news cycle but lose the war? The Republican presidential nominee's choice of Sarah Palin, an outsider from Alaska, to be his vice presidential running mate made all the right headlines for a day or two. And it stole some of the thunder from Barack Obama and the Democrats. But then a hurricane threw a new name, Gustav, into the media mix, and reporters learned that Ms. Palin, the so-called hockey mom, was about to become a grandmother. Our starting point this week, the media circus preceding and then surrounding the Republican National Convention in St. Paul, Minnesota. Political item number one for John McCain going into the Republican convention: change the media narrative.
Finds a surprise pick by John McCain.
And news just in, Republican presidential hopeful John McCain has named Sarah Palin as his vice presidential candidate.
Less than 24 hours after Barack Obama's big speech, McCain had sucked the oxygen right out of that story.
She's exactly who I need. She's exactly who this country needs.
Did McCain step on Obama's convention bounce by naming Sarah Palin to his ticket?
Republicans hope you are saying Barack who this morning.
Republicans were calling it a McCain masterstroke.
This is like something out of a novel.
Announcing his running mate, Sarah Palin, and introducing a fresh new face to American voters, a new angle for the media.
As it is often with a McCain decision, it was that the Maverick is back. Which he was, frankly. It was a pretty bold and interesting and weird pick.
Then, just as journalists and bloggers were sinking their teeth into the Palin story, unearthing old video from her days as a young sports anchor,
Minnesota's got to be notorious for something, I guess.
The new Alaska angle was overtaken by news from the opposite end of the country.
Gustav, the storm already killing more than 50 people, and it is gaining strength and now zeroing in on the U.S. Gulf Coast.
The Republican National Convention was derailed by the hurricane.
Months of planning have had to be abandoned.
The Republicans, fearing a repeat of Hurricane Katrina and the Bush administration's disastrous handling of that disaster, put part of their convention on hold.
Their worst nightmare was the first night of the Republican convention, and you had a split screen. On one side you saw the Republicans, on the other side you saw the tragedy because of the hurricane. They went to great lengths to avoid that happening. Clearly that was a political calculation.
A calculation designed, again, to control the media narrative, which the Republicans quickly lost all over again, when it was announced that Sarah Palin's teenage daughter was 5 months pregnant.
John McCain's campaign dropped that bombshell as Hurricane Gustav dominated the news.
But is the media going to really hold her responsible for her 17-year-old juvenile daughter? It just seems like that's unfair and out of bounds.
The media is following this story when there's been an unwritten code that kids are off limits. Why is Sarah Palin's daughter not off limits?
Well, this is one of the last frontiers that we haven't violated until the last 48 hours.
With the media's investigations into Palin, their questioning of her qualifications moving into overdrive, CNN pressed a McCain spokesman on Palin's national security credentials.
Tell me give me an example of one of those decisions. I'm just curious, just one decision she made in her capacity as Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard.
Campbell, certainly you don't mean to belittle every experience, every judgment that she makes as commander of the National Guard.
I'm belittling nothing.
The campaign reacted by punishing CNN, canceling an interview John McCain had agreed to give the network.
He is declaring sort of war on the media and saying that they're going too far, that they're against me, that they're digging up private things about my wife and about my running mate's family, and it's completely unfair. So I think we're going to have a much more aggressive relationship over the next few months.
Some Washington pundits and media big shots are in a frenzy over the selection of a woman who is actually governed rather than just talk the good game on the Sunday talk shows and hit the Washington cocktail circuit.
McCain's running mate, in her convention speech, tried to turn the tables on the news media.
I've learned quickly these last few days that if you're not a member in good standing of the Washington elite, then some in the media consider a candidate unqualified for that reason alone. But here's a little news flash for those reporters and commentators. I'm not going to Washington to seek their good opinion. I'm going to Washington to serve the people of this great country.
John McCain and the U.S. media used to be on friendly terms. Journalists working in new media are taking credit for changing that through internet videos like The Real McCain, which examine McCain's shifting policies, his many contradictions, in a way few mainstream media outlets do.
Since he comes from a generation, a pre-YouTube generation, he's in the habit of saying one thing at one time and saying something else at another time.
I voted against the tax cuts.
You voted to extend them?
I voted to extend them. I voted against the tax cut. I've always been for tax cuts. We either keep our word or we don't keep our word.
That's the purpose of The Real McCain videos. That's why millions of people have seen them. And in concert with people around the country and around the world and good, hard-working journalists, I believe the love affair that has existed between McCain and the media is turning.
It's not just Western media following the story. The Canadian media research firm Influence Communications tallies and analyzes global news coverage. And since the start of the year, more than 750,000 broadcast stories on the U.S. campaign have aired outside the U.S.
The Arab media, like its counterpart in the United States, has been kind to John McCain. It jumped on the bandwagon of subjecting Barack Obama to all kinds of scrutiny. McCain, on the other hand, was given a pass. What's amazing, though, is the fact that most Arab journalists did not question his positions on Iraq, Afghanistan, or Palestine. In their opinion, he was cut from the same stone as George W. Bush. They knew Bush's position on the war in Iraq, and that was enough for them.
However, John McCain's Republicans are not that interested in what the global news media report. The Republicans are focused on the American media, and they're spoiling for a fight. Here's how our Global Village Voices saw the media coverage of the Republican convention.
It seems that John McCain has chosen Governor Sarah Palin as his running mate to present an alternative narrative, that of a mother of five from a small town with evangelical values, rising up to become the vice presidential nominee. It's really going to be up to the general public to decide which is a more interesting story for a leader of America, a black man or a white woman. And in any case, all of the candidates are going to be under much closer scrutiny in the coming months because of the general election in November.
John McCain's relationship with the press is pretty complicated because he hides things to the press. So the problem is not the press, it's John McCain. Look at Sarah Palin's story. There are tons of things that never came out, and the procedure, the daughter, the scandals, and of course the press is curious about that. So there is no reason for John McCain to be annoyed if the press tried to attack and try to get information.
Our Global Village Voice outlet can be your platform to tell the world what you think of the news media. Email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net. We have the technology to get your voice on the air. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. The lawyer for Abdel Suleiman, the first blogger to be jailed in Egypt, says her client is being mistreated in prison and that his condition is deteriorating. Suleiman blogged under the pen name Karim Amr before he was jailed in late 2006 for what prosecutors called inciting hatred of Islam and insulting President Hosni Mubarak. Suleiman said he was simply chronicling the government's religious and authoritarian excesses. According to his lawyer, Suleiman is forbidden to leave his jail cell, has been frequently beaten by fellow prisoners with the permission of prison guards, and has been denied access to a doctor. The media freedom group Reporters Without Borders has called for the immediate release of Suleiman, who still has 2 years left to serve. Still in Egypt, the Arabic Network for Human Rights says the Mubarak government is finding new ways of keeping tabs on internet users, new ways of online policing. The organization says the government now demands that internet cafes gather personal information on internet users, including their names, email addresses, and mobile telephone numbers. According to Egyptian government statistics, the country has over 162,000 bloggers, many of whom, like the aforementioned Suleiman, use the web to criticize the government's democratic credentials and human rights record. There has been another suspicious death of a journalist in Russia, another reminder of how dangerous it can be to be critical of the Kremlin. Magomed Yevloyev ran a popular opposition news website in Russia's Ingushetia region, that's in the Caucasus. He was shot in the head and killed while in police custody. The police claim Yevloyev was shot by accident as he tried to resist arrest. The journalist's website was never popular with the Russian government, which in May of this year ordered that it be shut down for publishing what the Kremlin called extremist articles. Last year, Yevloyev posted a piece on his site accusing the pro-Kremlin president of Ingushetia of hiring hitmen to kill him. And here's a story the Russian media like much better than that one. It portrays Prime Minister Vladimir Putin as a hero. Putin was on a trip to eastern Russia recently when, according to the story, a Siberian tiger tried to attack a camera crew. The moment seemed rather made for TV. Putin just arrived at the park when the tiger happened to pounce, and Putin is said to have shot it with a tranquilizer gun. And the camera crew failed to get the video of that. However, they were happy to provide some tasty sound bites to the Russian and international news media.
We probably came too close to her. She suddenly got loose and rushed to us. A miracle saved us.
A shooting, fishing, horse-riding miracle named Vladimir Putin. We're back after the break with a story about a famous hostage rescue. Turns out there's more to the tale than was first reported.